Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into the icy waters of the North Atlantic, just to revisit the story of the Titanic, but to uncover the lost evidence and forgotten testimonies that could change how we view one of history's most infamous disasters. For over a century, the narrative has been set in stone: a majestic ship, an unseen iceberg, a tragic accident. But what if I told you there's more to the story? What if crucial pieces of the puzzle were ignored, dismissed, or simply lost to time? Let's start with a name, or probably never heard: Cyril Evans. He was the lone radio operator on a nearby ship, the SS Californian. On the night of April 14, 1912, Evans tried to warn the Titanic about a massive ice field his ship was stopped in. His message was urgent: "We are stopped and surrounded by ice." But the Titanic's radio operator, exhausted after a long day of sending passenger messages, reportedly replied, shut up, I am busy." A short while later, Evans, following protocol for a single operator ship, turned off his radio and went to bed. Just minutes later, the Titanic would strike the iceberg. Had that warning been heeded, history might have been very different. The Californian was, by many accounts, the closest ship to the sinking Titanic, possibly only 10 to 20 miles away. Several of its crew members saw mysterious white rockets in the distance, the same distress signals the Titanic was firing. They woke their captain, Stanley Lord, who was resting in the chart room. He was told about the rockets, but he dismissed them, suggesting they were just company signals. He never ordered his radio operator to be woken up. The ship that could have mounted the quickest rescue remained stationary until morning, when official inquiries were held. Captain Lord's testimony was inconsistent, and he was widely condemned for his inaction. But was it just incompetence, or was there more to his story? Some of his crew later claimed their testimonies were altered or suppressed, leading to a century of debate about what really happened on the Californian's bridge that night. Now, let's talk about the ship itself. We all know the iceberg was the cause, but evidence that surfaced decades later suggests the ship could have been fatally weakened before it ever left port. Photographs taken before the Titanic's maiden voyage show a long, dark mark on the starboard side of the hull, right where the iceberg would later strike. In 2017, a journalist named Senan Maloney presented a compelling theory. This mark was evidence of a major coal fire that had been burning in one of the ship's bunkers for days, even before it set sail from Southampton. This wasn't a secret at the time, at least not to the crew. A fire in a coal bunker wasn't uncommon, but this one was allegedly large and difficult to control. Maloney's research, based on these forgotten photos and expert analysis, suggests the fire could have heated the steel hull to a critical temperature, drastically reducing its strength by as much as 75%. So, when the Titanic hit the iceberg, the steel didn't just bend, it shattered. The chairman of the White Star Line, J. Bruce Ismay, who was aboard the ship and survived, allegedly knew about the fire, but it downplayed its significance to avoid delaying the highly anticipated maiden voyage. The official inquiries barely touched on the fire, dismissing it as irrelevant. But if this theory is correct, the disaster wasn't just an act of God. It was a catastrophe waiting to happen, fueled by a combination of human error and the desire to maintain a schedule at all costs. And what about the binoculars? It's one of the most maddening what-ifs of the Titanic story. The ship's lookouts, Frederick Fleet and Reginald Lee, were spotting for icebergs with their naked eyes. Why? Because the key to the locker, where the crow's nest binoculars were stored, was missing. That key was in the pocket of Second Officer David Blair, who was reassigned to another ship at the last minute and forgot to hand it over. In the official inquiries, Lookout Frederick Fleet stated unequivocally, "Had we have had binoculars, we would have seen it a bit sooner." When asked how much sooner, he replied, "Enough to get out of the way." It's a simple, chilling piece of evidence. A single, Misplaced key could have provided the crucial extra seconds needed to avert disaster. The key itself was found years later and sold at auction, a small, mundane object representing a colossal failure in procedure. Then there are the forgotten warnings from the sea itself. The Titanic wasn't sailing blind. Throughout the day on April 14th, it received at least 6 distinct ice warnings from other ships in the area. These messages clearly indicated a massive ice field lay directly in its path. We already mentioned the final, dismissed warning from the Californian, but others came from ships like the Coronia and the Mesaba. The Mesaba's warning was particularly detailed, pinpointing the location of much heavy pack ice and a great number of large icebergs. This crucial message was received by the Titanic's radio room, but there is no evidence it ever reached Captain Smith on the bridge. It seems it was simply filed away under a stack of passenger telegrams, deemed less urgent. The sheer volume of warnings, when viewed together, paints a picture not of a surprise encounter, but of a ship steaming at high speed directly into a known danger zone. Perhaps the most haunting lost evidence comes from the survivors themselves, particularly those in steerage. The narrative we often hear is one of brave officers maintaining order. But testimonies from third-class passengers, many of whom were immigrants who didn't speak English, tell a different story. They spoke of locked gates, of being held below decks, while the first and second-class passengers boarded lifeboats, and of being given confusing or non-existent instructions. Many of these accounts were dismissed during the official inquiries or lost in translation. The American inquiry, in particular, was criticized for focusing on the wealthy and influential survivors. The stories of the people in steerage, who suffered the highest casualty rate, were largely ignored. They were the silent victims, whose testimony could have painted a much darker picture of class division in the face of death. Recovered letters and diaries written after the sinking echo these claims, forming a body of evidence that challenges the romanticized version of the ship's final hours. So, when we piece together this lost evidence, the ignored radio warning, the stationary rescue ship, the smoldering fire, the missing key, the unheeded ice reports, and the suppressed survivor testimonies, the sinking of the Titanic transforms. It becomes less of a simple accident and more of a perfect storm of negligence, arrogance, and fatal mistakes. Each piece of lost evidence was a link in a chain of failure. Removing any one of them might have saved the unsinkable ship. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the Titanic's forgotten history. It's a powerful reminder that the stories we think we know often have hidden depths. If you found this interesting, please hit that like button and subscribe for more explorations into the mysteries of the past. Let me know in the comments which piece of lost evidence you find most compelling. Until next time, stay curious.